Hello, everyone, and thank you for taking some time out of your day to view this video. Thank you for helping plan the 2024 homeless count and youth count. The purpose of this video is to give a brief demonstration of what we're referring to as the HC 2024 Hotspot Data Collection Form. The purpose of this form is that it's an opportunity for you to provide accurate information about where unsheltered persons are, either sleeping or gathering, as this information is critical to plan for the point-in-time counts, including the youth count and surveying of unsheltered residents as part of the demographic survey. All right, let's get into the survey form. So again, this tool is to be used for input and review of hotspot data collected in October 2023 for the purposes of planning for homeless count, survey locations, and for the youth count. With this survey, you will report any locations where you've routinely seen people experiencing homelessness in the last 3 months, preferably. Obviously, we don't want observations based on quite a while ago, as it won't be current and thus probably not accurate. So for each location that you have witnessed people experiencing homelessness in the last 3 months, you will enter a location on its own individual survey. So you won't have multiple surveys for one point. That way we can spread it out and make sure that every location has its own specific information assigned to it. Speaking of locations, in addition to this survey, what we have over here is a map of Los Angeles, our COC, and the data points that have already been collected. You can see there's been a number of points collected up here in Spa 1, some in Spa 5 near Malibu, and then one in central Los Angeles near Huntington Park. We also noticed 3 points down here on Long Beach. You can ignore these. These are purely test points. In fact, if you click on it, you can see that it's been entered by myself, just to make sure that the survey was working properly and that the map is reflecting the results of this survey. The purpose of this map really is so that before you submit a data point, you can pan around and look at the location in advance to make sure that no one's already collected data for that location, because we don't want to duplicate things, obviously. And when we do go through and vet all of this data periodically, we will look specifically for data points that are really close to one another and have similar numbers, and then we'll end up having to follow up with you. So always, do your due diligence before you fill out a survey, and that'll make the whole process a lot easier. All right, let's go a little more into depth about the instructions. So again, only if this location has not been submitted, you can input information about observed people experiencing homelessness. That can be individuals, families, vehicles, tents, or makeshift structures. For each location, please complete the following form, and we'll get to that in a moment, by providing an unduplicated estimate of unsheltered persons 25 or over, unsheltered persons under 25 years old, unsheltered families containing at least one adult over 18 with at least one dependent child under 18 years old. This is per HUD's definition. If you're unsure about whether it could be a family or perhaps maybe just 2 adults or even 2 youths, if the age is unclear to you, you can mark it as a family, or you can just use your best judgment, really. And then there is an opportunity for you at the end of the survey to write down any notes if you are actually unsure, and that will be taken into account. Once you input a count of individuals, vehicles, or structures, you will report the time of day that you most regularly see activity at each location. And then, as I mentioned just now, you will also have the opportunity to add additional comments or details under additional information / special instructions. And there are a couple of examples listed below. Cars and vans parked at night, tents are there all day. There's a family living in one of the tents. Just feel free to provide any information that you feel like has context, and that would be useful for us as we go through the data. As I alluded to before, if a location has already been submitted, you will see a red dot. You can see the screenshot. Also, you can look throughout the map. I'll zoom out a little bit so you can see some more of these red dots. So again, please review the information associated with that location by clicking on the red dot. If you have some additional information to add, please go through the process of submitting this location again, and then explain why you're duplicating the location in the additional information / special surveys text box, or additional information / special instructions text box, excuse me. So for instance, here's one of the test points that I created that don't actually mean anything. So let's say you're looking at this location and all the information that's been put in. You can see that William Shaw has entered one person 25 or older, one person under 25, one family. But let's say that, okay, I recognize where these people are, and I've observed these folks as well. But I've also noticed that that there's also vehicles in this area, and it doesn't look like William has entered any vehicles for this location. So yeah, in theory, you could go back, you could add additional information, and then again, just explain why in the additional information special instructions text box. Obviously, we won't be finding anyone in the Long Beach airport. Long Beach was selected specifically because it's not in our COC, and so that way, it's not going to create any confusion for folks, because you're really not supposed to be surveying this, the city of Long Beach anyway, because it's its own COC. Back to the instructions. Before submitting, be sure to include your email address in the event that we have questions about the data you've submitted. And then, alternatively, if you have any questions for us, you can please email datasupport@lhasa.org. Also, please include HC24, Hotspot Data Collection Form, in the subject line. This way, the individual or team of individuals that have to reroute all these requests that come in, they will know right away to send it to myself or someone on my team. Cool, let's go through a demonstration of how to input the data. So you'll start by selecting a location, either by typing an address or dropping a pin in the map below. But before we start, again, if location's already been identified, please do not duplicate. Also, please do not submit data for the cities of Glendale, Long Beach, and Pasadena, as they are not part of the area considered for this count. If you do decide to input data within these hashed out areas that represent Glendale, Pasadena, and Long Beach, ultimately it just won't be taken into account. We'll do some vetting if it maybe reach out if we think maybe you just placed it in the wrong location, but data for these other COCs will not be considered as part of the results of this practice. So we can start by selecting a location. So either you can, if you're good with your Los Angeles geography, you can pan around, you can double click to zoom in. Or if you know an address already, you can just input an address, and I'll just make something up here. 7075 Marpresa. Excuse me. This is a neighborhood in Huntington Park. And this pin is what represents where your data point will be. So if you get it close to where you want it, you can double click to zoom in closer, and then to actually place it, it's a single click. So before you start, take your time, get used to navigating it, and just so that we can make sure that its location is as accurate as possible. So I'll just say that our location is going to be what is Carl's Jr. right here. And then we'll get into the who or what. And I will just make up some numbers. Seems a little extreme. I'll say 2 makeshift shelters and 5 persons 25 or older. And then you can leave all of these blank if you are not observing persons under 25, families, vehicles, etc. Just enter what you see. You really don't even need to put in zeros if you don't see anyone. Just enter information for the locations that, or for the types of persons experiencing homelessness that you observe. Under time of day, this is where you will report the time of day that you most regularly see activity at each location. Feel free to add any additional comments and details under special instructions or additional information. As I mentioned before, is really a useful tool as part of the survey, is providing that context. It actually helps our team out a lot when we need to make judgment calls for what data, if we have questions about the data and its validity, that kind of context really comes in handy. So don't be afraid to use it. And for this demonstration purposes, I will just click early morning, mid to late morning, and then late evening. So maybe it's just somewhere that someone kind of hangs out overnight, or maybe that's where they park their car in a location. But you can check all that apply. And then for additional information, special instructions, you can just I'll put Carl's Jr. parking lot inside the store as well. The last section is new for this year. This has to do with safety and accessibility. Obviously, we don't want to send folks into dangerous areas or areas that they just plain can't access. If it's private property, or if it's like a open space, in one of our green space areas, like up in the Santa Monica Mountains or something like that, or in a park, it's just difficult for folks to get to on foot for whatever reason. We want to make sure that all those areas are identified. So this question asks, is there a reason for safety concerns in this area, or is the area potentially inaccessible? And so I'm just going to put unsure. I'm choosing unsure because this is a scenario in which you can add, again, context. And you can just say that, I'll just say a potentially dangerous neighborhood. And then lastly, before you submit your survey, we will want contact information. Let's try that again. There we go. Shaw at Lhasa. Then I'll put Lhasa and then select your spa. And so I believe this would fall under spa 6. Cool. And then when you're ready to submit, you can select submit. You can click here to submit another response. That'll refresh the survey. But your data point, let's see. And then your data point will appear on the map on its own. If it doesn't show up right away, maybe just give it a minute and then refresh it. But it should pop up almost immediately. And if you're having issues with your data reflecting on the map, that would be an example of a time that you can reach out to, that's right, datasupport@lhasa.org, and we will provide assistance. Cool, well, I'm gonna end the video there. I'm going to go and delete this data point so it doesn't create any confusion amongst people volunteering to help with this survey. But again, on behalf of Lhasa and our partners, I wanna say thank you again for assisting us with your participation. It's really valuable, it's super helpful for our planning process, and very much appreciated. So thank you.